Hey, welcome to Cheating Story Lab. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I never thought I'd be the guy telling this story. You know the type. The one who gets played so badly that strangers on the internet shake their heads and wonder how someone could be that blind. But here I am, and I need to tell you exactly what happened in that courtroom 3 months ago. My name doesn't matter, but what happened to me. It might save someone else from going through the same hell. Delilah and I had been married for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was, well, not perfect, but real. She was a pediatric nurse, worked long hours, came home exhausted. I ran a small accounting firm from our home office, so I was always there when she needed me. Or at least I thought she needed me. The signs were all there looking back. The phone calls that stopped when I walked into the room. The sudden interest in working extra shifts. The way she'd shower immediately when she got home, even though she'd already showered at the hospital. But you know how it is. When you love someone, you find excuses for everything. It all came crashing down on a Tuesday morning in March. I was making coffee, getting ready to start my day, when Delilah's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was still in the shower, and normally I wouldn't even glance at it. But the name on the screen made my stomach drop. Marcus, her ex from college. The guy she'd told me was ancient history and just a friend now. The message preview was enough. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again tonight. My hands were shaking as I set down my coffee mug. The ceramic hit the counter too hard and cracked right down the middle. Black coffee spread across the white granite, and I just stood there watching it drip onto the floor. When I confronted her that evening, Delilah didn't even try to deny it. She just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Cold, almost bored, like I was interrupting something more important. It's been going on for 8 months, she said, not even looking up from her laptop. I didn't plan it, but things change, you know, people change. 8 months, while I was working 60-hour weeks to save up for the vacation to Italy she'd been talking about, while I was calling her beautiful every morning and bringing her coffee in bed on weekends. While I was planning our future, the divorce papers came faster than I expected. Delilah had been preparing for this longer than I realized. She wanted half of everything, including my business. The business I'd built from nothing, working 16-hour days in our spare bedroom while she was in nursing school. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was finding out that Marcus was a divorce attorney, and apparently a very good one. By the time I hired my own lawyer, Patricia Hendricks, a sharp woman in her 50s who came highly recommended, Delilah had already filed claims that painted me as controlling, financially abusive, and neglectful. According to her paperwork, I had isolated her from friends and family. I had monitored her activities. I had used my business to hide assets from her. None of it was true, but Marcus had coached her well. Every lie was just believable enough, just detailed enough to make a judge pause and wonder. This is going to be difficult, Patricia told me during our first meeting. She's making some serious allegations, and her legal representation is aggressive. Aggressive was an understatement. Over the next 3 months, Marcus filed motion after motion. He demanded financial records going back 8 years. He subpoenaed my business partners, my clients, even my elderly mother. He painted me as a man who controlled his wife's every move while secretly planning to leave her with nothing. The strategy was brilliant, in a sick sort of way, make me look like the villain so thoroughly that when the truth about the affair came out, and it would have to eventually, it would seem like justified revenge rather than betrayal. But I had something they didn't know about. See, 8 months ago, around the time Delilah's affair started, we'd been having some issues with our home security system. It kept malfunctioning, recording audio randomly throughout the house. I'd called the company multiple times to fix it, but they kept saying the system was working normally. It wasn't until after Delilah moved out that I thought to actually check those recordings. Hours and hours of mundane household sounds. Me working in my office, the TV in the living room, normal life, but scattered throughout. Conversations. Phone calls Delilah thought were private. And not just with Marcus. There were calls to her sister laughing about how clueless I was. Calls to her best friend detailing exactly how she and Marcus were planning to take me for everything. Calls to Marcus himself, strategizing about which lies would be most effective, which assets they could claim, how to make me look like the bad guy. In one recording, I listened to my wife of 6 years laugh as she told Marcus. He actually asked me yesterday if I was happy. Can you believe that? I just smiled and said yes. God, he's so pathetic. I had to stop the playback and walk outside. I stood in my backyard for 20 minutes just breathing, trying to process what I'd heard. Patricia listened to every single recording, all 47 hours of them. She took notes, organized them, cross-referenced them with the timeline Delilah had provided in her sworn statements. This changes everything, she said finally. But we need to be strategic about when and how we reveal this. The day of our final hearing, I felt like I was walking to my own execution. Delilah sat across the courtroom looking confident and composed. Marcus kept glancing at his watch like this was all just a formality before his real victory. Judge Morrison was a stern man in his 60s who'd clearly seen every dirty trick in the book. But as Marcus presented Delilah's case, painting me as a controlling manipulator who'd spent years financially abusing his innocent wife, I watched the judge's expression grow more sympathetic toward her. When it was my turn to speak, I tried to explain the truth. I tried to tell Judge Morrison that I'd never controlled Delilah, never monitored her, never tried to hide assets. That I'd supported her career, encouraged her friendships, and worked myself to exhaustion to build a life for us. But without evidence, it just sounded like the desperate pleading of a man caught in his lies. Judge Morrison actually chuckled when I finished. Not a mean laugh, but the kind you give when someone's story is just too convenient, too self-serving to believe. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "I've heard a lot of stories in this courtroom, men who paint themselves as perfect husbands while their wives describe years of subtle abuse. The pattern is always the same." That's when I saw Delilah smirk, just a small curve of her lips, but I caught it. She thought she'd won. Marcus was already shuffling his papers, probably calculating his fees. Patricia stood up slowly. "Your Honor, if I may, I have some additional evidence that I believe is relevant to these proceedings." Judge Morrison looked annoyed. "Ms. Hendricks, we've already heard audio recordings, Your Honor, from the defendant's home security system, recordings that span the 8-month period in question." The courtroom went completely silent. I watched Delilah's face change, the color draining from her cheeks. Marcus looked up sharply from his papers. "I object," Marcus said quickly. "These recordings were obtained without—" "Without what?" Judge Morrison asked. "It's the defendant's own home, his own security system." "Overruled. I'll hear the recordings." Patricia walked to the front of the courtroom with a small digital recorder. "This first recording is from September 15th, approximately 2 weeks after Mrs. Johnson claims her husband began monitoring her activities." She pressed play, and Delilah's voice filled the courtroom, clear as day. "Marcus, he has no idea. I told him I was working a double, but I'll be at your place by 8. No, he never checks up on me. He's too trusting. It's actually kind of sad how much he believes everything I say." The judge's expression changed immediately. He leaned forward in his chair. Patricia played another recording. Then another. Delilah talking about hiding money in a separate account. Marcus coaching her on what to say in her deposition. The two of them laughing about how they were going to destroy me in court. With each recording, I watched my wife of 6 years shrink smaller in her chair. Marcus was frantically whispering to her, but there was nothing they could do. Her own voice was betraying every lie she'd told. The final recording was the worst, or the best, depending on how you looked at it. "The judge is going to eat this up," Delilah was saying. "A controlling husband, financial abuse, isolation. Marcus, you're brilliant. By the time we're done, he'll be lucky to keep his car, and the best part, he'll never see it coming. He still thinks I love him." The laughter that followed. I'll never forget that sound. It wasn't human. It was the sound of someone who'd found genuine joy in destroying another person. When the recording ended, the courtroom was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. Judge Morrison looked at Delilah for a long moment, then at Marcus, then at me. "Mrs. Johnson," he said finally, his voice completely different now. "Do you have anything to say about these recordings?" Delilah opened her mouth, but nothing came out. What could she say? Her own voice had just confessed to perjury, fraud, and conspiracy. Marcus tried to salvage something. "Your Honor, these recordings may have been taken out of context." "Mr. Marcus," Judge Morrison interrupted, "I suggest you focus on damage control for your client rather than trying to spin what we all just heard." The judge's final ruling was swift and decisive. Not only did Delilah get nothing from the divorce, but he referred her case to the district attorney for perjury charges. Marcus was facing potential disciplinary action with the state bar. As we left the courtroom, Delilah tried to approach me one last time. Her makeup was streaked with tears, her confident mask completely gone. "Please," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far. I still love you. We can work this out." I looked at this woman I'd shared 6 years of my life with, this woman I'd trusted with everything, this woman who'd planned my destruction while I made her coffee every morning. "I recorded that conversation too," I said quietly. "The security system is still running." It wasn't true, but I wanted her to feel what I'd felt for months. The paranoia, the doubt, the fear that every word might be turned against you. 3 months later, I'm rebuilding my life. The business is doing well, better than ever, actually. Turns out, surviving betrayal gives you a clarity about what really matters. Delilah and Marcus broke up 2 weeks after the trial. Apparently, planning someone's destruction together isn't a great foundation for a relationship. Who would have thought? I still have those recordings. Sometimes, late at night, I think about listening to them again. reminding myself of what she really thought of me. But I never do, because the truth is I don't need to hear her voice to remember the lesson. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time.